model. And then you look at as I said, it's definitely the most popular SDLC model. When I say SDLC, it's software development lifecycle. Sorry for the jargon there. It's a simple way of saying how you would develop the process that you would need to develop a piece of software. It could be a mobile application, an enterprise application, a Facebook type web application, or it could be something like a search engine offered by Google. It could be any of these. All of these are projects, software projects. So when we look at the software development lifecycle model, this was the most popular because there was no agile, because there was no concept of agile, there was no concept of empowering the team. You know what, most of the time, the project managers and the client would actually say, give the estimate, they actually dictate when they want things to get done. It's not the team. The team never had a say. The people, like, it's like what we were discussing the other day about the estimation, software estimation. The painter doesn't have an idea. He was not going to say how much time it takes to, you know, paint the house. It's actually told by either me, who wants the house. I would dictate how much time it would take and what are the things involved in getting the house painted, which was the worst thing to happen. And then it involves mostly linear and sequential activities. The problem with this waterfall was that it was actually mostly linear, as you would have seen here. It's involving mostly things which were like this. The water is falling from here. The water cannot skip this stage, right? If you put the water from here on this step, it has to go through this one, then this one, then this one, this one. It cannot jump all the way, skip everything all the way down and then jump into the last step. That's the major problem with the waterfall. So because of the fact that it's linear, you cannot change. Suddenly, if there is a change in the requirement, you can't just go back and change the design immediately and then develop. It needs to go all the way. There was a process that we used to follow. It's called CR, that is change request. The process is change request. If the client wants, for example, this particular color, which is purple now, the client doesn't like this, or perhaps that's the company which we are developing this project, the product for, has been acquired by some other company in the span of 1.5 years of this project, as we were talking about. And this company's branding is different. Now it is purple now. Perhaps the new company which has taken over has got a blue as their brand logo and brand colors. Then they want us to change this from, for example, from the purple to blue. For that small change, they need to raise a change request form, a change request, CR, and that has to go through a lot of this impact analysis, what we call as impact analysis from the team to understand what is the impact of that change in the design, in the architecture, on the UI, on the database, blah, blah, blah. And then they spend a lot of time, 1 month, to come up with the analysis of that, give a report and say a go or no go. So by the time they come up with that, it would be a good 2 months. So you're talking about making a small change, like changing the color of a particular, you know, a line or something, or even change the spelling of a word. It would take such a huge process, very, very, very cumbersome. Why? Because it's all, you know, sequential. And nobody would like to actually take that call because the customer is somebody sitting outside. They're not involved in the process. And then completion of one phase leads to the subsequent phase. That's why it's called waterfall, waterfalling, right? So unless you finish the analysis, you can't start the design. Unless you started the design, you cannot, unless you started and also completed, you cannot just start and then do the coding side by side. And then that's where it is actually the extreme programming came up, where you actually put a pair of programmers. It's called paired programming in the agile context, where you put two programmers. One does the design and thinking and the algorithm of how to approach a problem, and the other programmer sitting next to him actually does the coding. So one person actually is thinking on the behalf of other developer, and this developer actually kind of all the way does the coding. So as and when this person does the coding, the other person was actually looking at the code. So the code is actually being reviewed in line as and when it is being done. So that's the beauty of extreme programming. That's the fantastic facilities and the opportunities offered by agile methodologies as opposed to the waterfall. And you know that with waterfall, there are some advantages. I'm not saying it's all that bad, because you can clearly see what is involved. You have got a stepwise. You say that one after another. It's like What comes after 2? 3. What comes after 3? 4. What comes after 3? 4? It's 5. So you know that there is a bit of clarity in terms of the steps. So there's a predictability in terms of what we're doing, not in terms of what you're trying to see from the external factors. There's definitely change that we can't see. But then that's the reason why it's so difficult in Waterfall to accommodate the change. I was talking about changing the color of this screen from purple to blue. It takes ages. It takes so much of processing, so much of discussion, so many discussions, so many CRs, so many budget changes and approvals to just change this one. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's actually, I've worked in some projects which were so bad. So that's the problem with the Waterfall. So when we talk about Waterfall, it does give you that sense of complexity. It's too cumbersome, too many moving parts, too many things which are dependent on one another. If you move this, everything will go down. So you can't just work easily with the Waterfall. Whereas with Agile, it's all about the agility, the nimbleness, how you would accept the change, how you would prepare yourself, how you could really work quickly to accommodate and work